Okay, and I'm going to go to my screen. Okay. I hope everybody can see that. With that in mind, we're going to talk about location. Location is critically important. Why? Documents are kept at the location where an event occurred. So you may think about a location today. For example, let's say you wanted to talk about Lake County here in California. Well, if you wanted to look at the 1850 data for Lake County, you wouldn't find it because there was no Lake County in 1850. Okay, it was formed later. The location itself often can give you insights into people's lives. In terms of the nature of the world they lived in, we were talking earlier about early Scandinavian families that would go to the upper north of middle of the country, and they would have little enclaves, and you can learn a lot by looking at how that enclave was formed, who lived there, what they did. The other thing is usually relatives lived in the same place. It would not surprise you that if you don't know where your great-great-grandfather's wife came from, she probably came from the same place he did. It's a general truth in genealogy and actually in history that hardly anyone will move to a place where they don't know anyone. So when you see someone moving, they may know people from the same village or the same general area of the country if they came across the Atlantic Ocean. If they moved from Virginia to Missouri, it wouldn't surprise you to learn that other people from the same place in Virginia went to the same place in Missouri, and they knew each other. Definitely, you married people who you knew, and in the days when people didn't move around very much, your spouse almost always came from the same place you did. One of the problems is locations change their names. Political boundaries change. Okay. If you've ever looked at old maps, you know that new counties were formed, new states were formed, new cities were formed. Cities changed their names. Any older event was recorded as occurring in the city, county, and state that existed at the time of the event. So my favorite reference is one of my great-great-great-grandfathers who was born and died on the same farm. He lived there his whole life. While he lived there, he lived in 5 counties in 2 states because he was in southern West Virginia, and that's when West Virginia was formed in 1863. His farm moved from one state to another. But if you wanted to look at a record for his marriage, which occurred around 1840, you'd be looking in Virginia, not in the state he died, because that record would be in Virginia. Now, in the old days, to get his information, I literally would have had to go to 5 courthouses. But nowadays, luckily, most of it's online. When you are recording an event in your genealogical record, always keep the chronologically correct location. Your job is not to correct it to today's date. Your job is to make sure you've got the correct location for the date it occurred. Now, Ancestry is particularly bad at this. There are some others that have some of it. If you want to search for a location in Ancestry, they will watch what you type and they'll suddenly say, oh, do you mean this? When they say that, you want to click yes if you do, because the format helps them in their searching process. So for example, I may be used to saying Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, California. And they may say, no, it's California, Sonoma County, Santa Rosa. And it'll go a lot better if you do it the way they want. Don't forget the adjoining counties and states. When I was talking about the Scandinavian immigrants, one of my grandson's father's family came from the northernmost part of Iowa and also the southernmost part of Minnesota. Okay, their farm was within a mile of the state border, and sometimes it was on the south side of the border and they were in Iowa, and sometimes it was on the north side of the border or they were in Minnesota. Church would have been wherever it was. One of the more famous genealogical discoveries was when Barack Obama's ancestry was being traced. They found that part of his mother's family had come from Ireland. And they were tearing their hair out about how do you find out where in Ireland. And finally, somebody had the bright idea of looking at where the church was, which was the next door county. And there was an old cemetery in that church. And in fact, his ancestor's tombstone contained the name of the village he had come from in Ireland. Also remember that the big city may have been in a neighboring county. And people would occasionally move to the big city, or events would occur in the big city. And then in a metropolitan area, people do move between adjoining counties, but same in the same area. Think about someone who was from San Francisco. If you have any San Francisco ancestors, you know that sometimes they were in San Francisco, sometimes they were in Oakland or Alameda, sometimes they were somewhere else. But they were always in San Francisco. That doesn't mean where the records were. The records for the events are where the event occurred. And if the event occurred in a different county, that's where it was. The same thing is true for foreign locations. And sometimes the problem is much worse. Country borders change. My wife's mother's family was from Poland and Lithuania. And the boundaries of Poland and Lithuania are very amorphous. The language use changed. If you were in Poland at one point in time, the records were in Polish. At another point in time, the records were in Russian. The records, whatever they were. And spelling can be a problem, particularly in American records, because the pronunciation in the original language is not necessarily easily understood by somebody who's trying to write a record in the United States. We'll talk about spelling next week or next month when we talk about names. It's also important to remember that a lot of foreign countries, the birth, marriage, and death records are kept in the church. They're not kept by a administrative unit. And the church's languages would change. Which is why you need to always focus on what was the parish or diocese, which, by the way, may have not matched with the administrative unit for that area.
Hey, George.
Yeah.
Did I miss you say that you were not going to talk about genealogy software?
I'm definitely going to talk about it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you.
In about 3 slides.
Okay, thank you.
I'd promised I would talk about location, so I'm doing that.
Okay, thanks.
This is meant to be an introduction for the newbies. Randy Majors has a website that really deals well with historic locations in the United States. Okay. On our website, I have posted, or am posting, all the links I will talk about here. You don't have to write anything down. And Randy Majors, when you go there, has a whole batch of things you can look up. If you wanted to look up your census district in this year's and last year's census, you can do that. But he has the correct location name for a specific location over time. In Ancestry and Family Search, the same program is embedded. And sometimes when you start typing a name, it will alert you. So if I were to type Mercer County, West Virginia, I'd get an alert. If I was looking for an 1840 record, I'd get an alert that would say, it wasn't West Virginia then, George, it was Virginia, which is very helpful. He also, if you're into the middle of the country, when people got land through the Bureau of Land Management, okay, he has a great section township range search program where once you figure out what the land, where the land was, you can actually go see it on a map. Okay, so now we're going to go to family tree programs. Is that okay? I'd like to go through about a half a dozen slides about why this is not an easy thing to do. The first reason is because it doesn't have to be a permanent decision. All of the data that you create, there are some exceptions, but almost all, can be transferred from one program to another using a data method called GEDCOM and genealogy data conversion method. And it's universal. So if I start off with doing something in a program called Family Tree Maker, and I later want to put it into a program called Roots Magic, it's just a matter of downloading and uploading in this format. So there's nothing to keep you from picking a program now, starting your family tree there, and then say, okay, I'm ready for something different, or this isn't doing the job for me, and upload it to another one. You can also use this method to run a family tree program on your computer and then put a copy on a website like Ancestry or Family Search or MyHeritage. So you don't have to sweat the idea that everything has to be instantly synchronized. But you can.
George.
Yeah.
This is Peggy. You can also do it the opposite way, because like I have a tree on Ancestry and I want to put it also on my computer for safety's sake.
Yep.
And I can do it with the GEDCOM.
Yes. So the GEDCOM is quite universal. As everybody knows, I do a lot of DNA research, and I use some programs like FTDNA, where you can put a copy of your DNA and put a copy of your family tree, and then it does a lot of matching for you. So the main point is that the family tree decision, the program decision, is far from permanent. So the first big decision is, do you have a computer and use it regularly? And if so, there will be a big decision because different programs run well on the Mac and on the PC. It also, you may need to have a computer that has a relatively current operating system. You know, if you have a several generation old computer, it may not be able to take certain programs. It'll be easy to check that, but just be aware of that. If your primary program is based on your devices, your computer, you could do it on a tablet. It's essentially impossible to have one based on a cell phone. So if you're basically doing genealogical research and primarily you don't have a computer, you only have a tablet or a cell phone, you can access information on your tablet or cell phone, but you may want to have the basic information online. So with the online program, we'll talk about those. Your program is going to be on Ancestry or American Ancestor or Family Search or whatever. And you can sync those two. I have tried doing that, and I am a relatively experienced computer user. And let me say, I found it to be sufficiently difficult that I didn't want to do it again. In other words, not to download the GEDCOM and load the alternative, but rather to actually synchronize the two programs essentially every day. So what I do for something like Ancestry, and it's the reverse of what Nancy was talking about, is I'll build my family tree online. And I'm sorry, on my computer, my mistake, on my computer, I'll periodically download it as a GEDCOM and upload it to online sites. You can sync it automatically, but it is, I found it to be a bear. So the next question is, are you a subscriber to a major genealogy site? Ancestry, Family Search, MyHeritage, Find My Past, American Ancestors, all have online family tree programs. They're, as you'll see, they're all a little bit different. If you are a dedicated subscriber to one of these, you can consider constructing your tree on that site. These are the three that you have to pay for. Okay. And the reason is part, all of the real power of the program is based on being a subscriber. MyHeritage is a little bit different. We'll talk about that in a minute. What you build is a little internal website. Mine is called McKinney Family. What a surprise. You put your information in, and then others may join with you with your permission. And it may be an excellent way if you want to share your data with other researchers like your kids. Family Search's program is built to tie your information into their master family tree. It's hard to keep your information separate, but it sure allows you access to a lot of other researchers' data. If you like that program, and I'm hoping somebody will comment on it later, it can be very interesting. The one thing that's true about the master family tree at Family Search, they are never going to get rid of it. It's built into the Mormon religion, as you probably know. And as a result, if you put your data there, it will never get lost. So if you want to keep your information essentially forever, that is a good place to keep it. All right, the next question is, do you want to use hints? A lot of these programs that have search capabilities provide links to family tree programs, which allow you to look at hints for information regarding your ancestors. And you can enter that information from the hint directly into your family tree. Now, it sure makes it easy to find events. And if I'm dealing with, let's say, a sibling of one of my ancestors, and I'm trying to check the 1920 or 30 census, boy, it becomes really easy just to track it down using hints. The negative, it sort of discourages your own research. And I think what's critically important is looking at original records, because you almost always find something you're not expecting if you do. I remember one case where we lost one of my wife's half first cousins. And it turned out she got married and she was living next door to her father. It's just that until we figured out that's who that person was, okay, well, we figured it out by looking at the census. So no hint ever hinted to us, look next door to see if Josephine married somebody else. This is the way a hint looks this is one of the programs. So what they're doing here is they've taken, this is my grandfather, Neil Christian, and they've looked him up at Ancestry, Family Search, and MyHeritage. And they have found a number of things they think are good links. So if I were to click on one of the pending links, it would give me 22. I would get a list of 22 things they thought might be Neo-Christian records. And then I could click on any one of those records and say, yeah, that's a piece of new information I didn't have. And I can go all the way to the original record. And then if I really liked it, I can actually adopt it and put it into my program. I can also reject it. And I may reject it because I already know it. It's no new information there. Okay. When you pick a program, think about how big a family tree you want to research. If you're thinking about, gee, I just really want my near family. And there are people who do that. You know, I want to go back about to my great grandparents and my first and second cousins, and that's about it. You know, you can be pretty open about what program you pick. Are you going to research more than one family tree? I have researched about 8 family trees. Okay, I've researched each of my sister's husband's trees. I have my grandson's father's trees. My wife's tree is separate from my tree. And that implies you want a more complicated program if you're thinking of doing that. Do you have someone you want to share your research with? And again, some programs are better at that. Are you a person who really wants to deal with family charts? There are many exciting charts you can create of your family, but only certain programs do a good job of those charts. I'm going to talk about witnesses in a minute, but how important is your keeping records of witnesses to events? And then finally, do you have a lot of documents and pictures you want to link to your tree? So what do I mean? Oh, and do you want to use your tablet and phone when you're traveling? Some programs are very good at linking through the cloud, so the information in your program is readily accessible on a tablet or phone. There we go. So this is what I mean by witnesses. In 1900, my grandmother was in Spokane, Washington, with her mother in the 1900 census. And these are all the people who are in that census. You will note the principal was actually not her grandmother, not her mother, but rather her oldest sister's husband. She was the youngest of the family. Okay, so what this program allows you to do is when you start entering the event and the facts in the event, okay, here's the date, here's the place, here's who the people was, or you can pick and add people to this list, give them what's called a role. So here is her, my grandmother's brother, Leif, okay, who was a child in the 1900 census with Sarah Angelin Cox, who was Cox Martin, that was her maiden name. Okay, so there's a lot of information I can get here. There were a lot of people in that record. So that's what it means to have the ability to tie a witness in easily. Then how much do you want to spend? I love oak modders. We tend to all be Scotch and parsimonious. And why spend $30 when you can spend 20? But the truth of the matter is you're going to use your genealogy program a lot. So you kind of want to get the one you want. And the range for a program is the most expensive is about 100, and the typical is 30 to 50. And many of the programs have a free starter version. You can start off and get up to like 500 people before you have to get a paid subscription. What in fact is more expensive is you want to have a major service. So if you want to have an annual subscription to Ancestry, that's $250 a year. Not to say that's not worth it, but to say that that's where the real expense in genealogy tends to be, is in the subscriptions to the major search services. Now, we are finally going to go to the programs. Okay, let me start with two programs that are designed both for the PC and the Mac. Family Tree Maker was the best known program for many years. It was owned by Ancestry. About 4 years ago, Ancestry stopped supporting it, and it was bought by a specialty software company, McKeeve, who have updated it and added a Mac version. McKeeve is best known because they are the company that actually has the most popular typing program, learning how to type. There is no free version. The cost is about $40 for a PC version, $70 for a Mac version. It links with Ancestry and Family Search. So the hints we're talking about. If you wanted to sync it with your Ancestry tree, you could put the tree on Ancestry and in Family Tree Maker. And every time you signed into Ancestry, it would update. The treatment of witnesses is not as systematic as I showed you a moment ago. It requires more steps on your part. This is a visual of Family Tree Maker. This is the family of Diana Spencer. They just illustrated it. This kind of shows you the way they work. They have a list of names, which you can put a search in for, find someone in your database. They have facts about the person. You can add facts. And then here they're showing the 4-generation family tree. So you can look up and down it. And sometimes you do this. I find I will look up and down the tree because I'm trying to match with somebody like in a DNA set. And I'm trying to say, I seem to remember that name. Where was it? And then I'll go find it. So you can look at places. You can say, I want to know everybody who was in Marin County, California. You can add media. Media would be like photographs and things. So this is not untypical of genealogy programs. Roots Magic is also PC and Mac. They have been around a long time. They have a free version. It offers quite a lot. It is limited in special features like that really nifty graphic that you wanted to do. It won't print out that chart unless you buy a full copy. But the full copy is only $39. It has links with most search sites. It was Roots Magic I showed you when we were talking about links. It will sync with Family Search. And it has a share function where once you begin to get an event, you can open up and say, who do I want to share this event with? And now you can pick other people in your database to share the event with. This is a picture of Roots Magic. I have used this program. It's not my workhorse program, but this would be a typical list of events. For those of you who are new to genealogy, this is the way it's going to look when you begin to get things together. Okay, this is my father. I know where he was born. I know where he went to school. He was in the census with his parents. Okay, his marriage, his education, where he worked, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And lots of data. And I pride myself on just having lots of data on people. My 6th great-grandfather, Joseph McKinney, did not exist in the knowledge of anybody in the family. His son did. His son was the first one to move to West Virginia. And when I got into knowing who Joseph was and what he did, he was in the Revolutionary War. He was with Washington at Delaware when they crossed over and beat up the Hessians at Trenton. I have somewhere in the range of 50 events in his life that, nobody knew anything about him before. Okay, Reunion. These are 2 Mac only programs. Reunion has been known as the workhorse program for Mac. Version 13 has just been released. It has a demo version, and I think demo is a good way to describe it. 50 people limit. The cost is $99. They claim they have a substantial link with most search sites, but since I don't have a Mac, I haven't had a chance to even try to test that. And that they can sync with both Ancestry and Family Search. And they can add witness to an event through a function called connections. So again, you can pretty easily add witnesses. This is the way their database looks. We're now into the Kennedys. This is, they'll show you the picture. So different views are available, charts, reports, the names of the people in the database, and the facts. Okay. Mac Family Tree is an alternative program. It was designed specifically for Mac users. It again has a demo version. It's a little cheaper, $60. It does not appear to have links with search sites. It syncs with Family Search. It does not have an obvious function to add witnesses, but since I don't have a Mac and didn't use it, I have no idea if that's true or not. Its big selling point is it really is designed to let multiple people research the same tree at the same time. So again, if you've got family, this might be one to look at. Note what the name is, Mac Family. And this is their database for the Kennedys, just to how it looks visually. FamilyHistorian is the one I use. It's a PC only. It is the most highly rated PC software now. It is very complicated. Now, I don't mean to overstate that. Once you get used to any one of these programs, they're not complicated because you use them all the time. The good news is that it does a lot. It has a free trial period and then a $70 cost. It links with all the search sites. It does not sync with Ancestry or Family Search, but it sure has a very strong capability to link multiple people to the same event, which is sort of where I live. That's the place I like to be. This is, again, my grandfather, James Cornelius Christian. This is, if you look, this is a set of the dates and events for him. Okay. I've highlighted the 1910 census. And these are his children. I could not believe when my grandmother told me 40 years ago, 50 years ago, that her oldest daughter had died, was named Golden Edith, but that's actually the name on the birth certificate. Just love it. Legacy is very highly rated. So only PC, has a free trial period, $30 cost. A lot of local residents use it and swear by it. I've used it for a period. I like FamilyHistorian slightly better. It has links with the search sites for the full version, not the trial version. It does not sync. Very strong capability to link people to the same event. Legacy is also known for having a substantial training video. You want to know how to do research in Czechoslovakia, you go to Legacy and they'll have a training video. Some of them are at extra cost. And this is what a family looks like on Legacy. And you can see for all of these, you have the ability to click on pedigree or descendant and look at them. You can look at chronology, where are people over time. Okay, let's go online for a couple of minutes. Family Search, no cost. It ties your family tree to the Family Search family tree. It's hard to keep it from doing that. Positive, very strong sharing of information. Negative, virtually impossible to build an independent tree with your own information. I have fought for years as I've tried to keep certain data that I have from being changed by people who share the family tree with me, and it's hard to do. Here's my family on Family Search. Okay, and there's James Cornelius. And we can look at him at person and get a lot more information if we wanted to. And you can add people easily. You can see I did not put my wife's grandparents, father's parents in. And you just hit a click and you add the information. Ancestry, no cost. On the other, and good tree building capabilities. And it links extremely well with Ancestry search, but to really take advantage of that, you have to be a subscriber. If you are an Ancestry subscriber, it's a really interesting place to go for a tree. Now, this is one of the ways of trees being presented that I just wanted to share, where basically you're doing all of the parallel children and siblings, you know, and who they married and all the rest. So here I know that neo-Christians, okay, one of his uncles is Robert Allen Christian, who married Martha Ellen Derrick. And boy, I could go off to the right and left here all day showing family members. I can also show it as a classic tree, going simply back parents, grandparents, no siblings. MyHeritage. MyHeritage creates a kind of online website for you and your family. There's no cost for the website. If you want to use their search capabilities and match with other people in their database, you need a subscription, which is also about $250. It is extremely well designed if you want to share information with other family members. You will note here, I have Warren Beaumont and David Beaumont. That was not deliberate. David's on the call here. And there's James Cornelius Christian and Lyda Della Christian. And similar look to the one we had a moment ago. And then here's information on James Cornelius Christian. This is on my website on MyHeritage. And it can be used like, literally like using your own website. And then finally is Jenny. Jenny will give you a personal tree for free. It ties into their master tree, similar to the master tree that is on Family Search. Building your tree is free. Linking it to the other trees in the database is cost of a subscription. And this is the way that they have them, showing some of their visuals and facts. So, before I close down, my recommendation. The best program is going to depend on how you react to the specifics of each alternative. I would recommend you pick 2 programs that sound interesting and try them and see how they fit the way you do genealogy. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to go back up and I'm going to ask if there's anybody online who, there we go, who's currently using Family Tree Maker and would like to comment on it. Just unmute yourself and make comments if you would.
So I'm Sandy and I use Family Tree Maker and I have for many, many years. I've used it since, gosh, 2003, I think. And I do sync it with Ancestry and I am very comfortable with it. I'm happy with it. The sync works well. It did not when it first came out a couple of years ago, the last version. But I'm going to try something different, George. I appreciate this presentation that you did, because I'm going to try a couple of these and see what I think.
Okay, anybody else who's a Family Tree Maker user? Okay,
I'm Terry and I'm new and I wanted to respond to that question.
Go.
Hi everybody. I'll turn my camera on there. I am an Ancestry.com subscriber. I lived in Davis previously and was an active member of the Davis Genealogy Club. I've been doing my genealogy for about 7 years now and have a fairly extensive tree on Ancestry. I first tried Legacy and it was okay. I mean, as a standalone to back up my Ancestry.com website information, and I wasn't very happy with it. And then on the advice of other club members, I bought Family Tree Maker last year, and I absolutely love it because when used in coordination with Ancestry.com, it syncs automatically, and it goes both ways. So whether you're choosing to work on your online version or on your computer version of your family tree, it will sync the other party up to whatever changes have been made, and it works really well. I think the cost has gone up. I believe I paid closer to $80. You might want to check on the current price, but it's
Okay.
worth it. It's definitely worth it, whatever it is.
Yeah, when I have used Roots Magic, which does sync with Ancestry, when I've used it, I find it much easier to take a hint on Ancestry with my Ancestry database. Take that information inside Ancestry, not outside. Okay.
George,
Yeah, I
also,
haven't tried that.
George, Bill Muller here, George. I've used Family Tree Maker for probably a good 15 years. And another feature that I like about it is they have, I guess you call it a multi-user version, because I have the database on my laptop and my wife also has a copy on her desktop. And we can both work on the database and sync it since we have an Ancestry subscription. And it seems to work very, very effectively. So I've had very good success with it. Speak
Okay.
highly of it.
Yeah, Family Tree Maker has been the best known program for many years.
Hey, George.
Okay. Yeah.
George, this is Alan Cafton. I also use Family Tree Maker. In fact, I'm multitasking here, doing some work on it right now. I found that, and of course I sync it with Ancestry, and I find trying to do my trees directly on Ancestry to be very kludgy compared to the flexibility they give me on Family Tree Maker. And then also, and of course it syncs quite well with Ancestry, but I can use it offline, or sometimes I let my Ancestry subscription lapse a little, but I could still use it. And I like the fact that it does some pretty nice charting, all built in the software.
Okay.
Is yours good?
Yeah.
Can I
Great.
taste it?
Yeah, it's very good.
Now,
I don't know.
taste it online without muting yourself.
Tastes good.
Okay. Roots Magic.
Might have cream.
I have used it somewhat extensively. Anybody else want to make a comment about it?
So
Pick one if you want, there's lots of.
this is Sandy again, George. I just have a really quick question. I do use Family Tree Maker and it has a good reporting as far as printing out charts and that kind of thing.
Mine
Can
too.
you say any of these other softwares that might have that capability, or do they all?
They all have some capability. It kind of depends on what chart you want. Okay. I kind of love, there's a chart which starts off with the two people and then works outward into some enormous fan. Okay. I love that chart. Okay. So different ones have different capabilities and what they show and how easy it is to change them or do them. I didn't want to get into that too much because the other thing that is true, a lot of these sites allow you to write a book about a person. So when I say that Leif Martin was a child in the census in 1900 with his mother in Spokane, they will construct a sentence out of that in a biography of Leif Martin. Okay, so that's another capability that you might want to look at if you think it's important to you. But all of them have some capabilities in charts. You also, if you download your GEDCOM, you can upload it to a program that specifically is designed to do charting. If you've got really neat things you want to do. Okay. Anybody who, okay, very important.
George?
Yeah.
Can you clarify the difference between linking and syncing?
Yes. Okay. Linking, let's go back up to this chart. No, here we go. Come on, George. I gotta go back. Again, somehow it's yelling at me. Okay. Okay. This is what I mean by linking. I am on my computer in my program for Roots Magic. Okay. And at my program, inside the program, is linking to Ancestry, Family Search, and MyHeritage, and finding hints for possible fits with James Cornelius Christian. Okay, so that's linking. Inside the program, it links. Syncing is if I had a program, family tree program on Ancestry, and I, on my computer, change something about Neil's facts. Okay, let's say I discovered he was really born on March 4th. Okay, I'd open up his record here, I'd change the record here. It would change on Ancestry as well. That's syncing. It would synchronize.
And then you can go to Ancestry and get all the hints. But you can't get it from inside your program if it didn't have that.
Right. So if my program didn't have this, I couldn't get those hints directly.
But you can still get them. It's just a little more work.
More work, exactly.
Okay, thanks.
It depends on how heavyweight you are into this. And what I find is I need some of this because I'm now dealing with family members who are, let's simply say, more complicated to understand. Okay. We'll talk about some of them next month when we talk about name spellings and my wife's Polish ancestors, which are a dog. Okay. Okay. I'd like to move on. Is there anybody here who has is a major user of Reunion? I'm hearing silence. Okay. Does anybody use Mac Family Tree? Okay. Other than me, does anybody use Family Historian and want to comment on it? Okay. And we had one comment on Legacy. Anybody who currently uses Legacy?
Hi, George. Peggy here.
Hi, Peggy.
Well, I got sucked into this, and I have Legacy and Ancestry and MyHeritage and Family Search and one other that I can't remember. And I liked Legacy because it was separate and apart from all the others. And I didn't use it for about 4 months, and I found there was all sorts of stuff on there I didn't recognize. I guess people or something synced into it. I don't know. They were people I didn't recognize. I mean, further out, like in the great grandparent era and beyond. So, and that hasn't happened, I don't think, in some of the others. Now I'm getting all confused on, I have so many of them.
Okay, let's just simply say that one of the things to be careful about in any of these programs is accepting somebody else's facts.
Right.
Okay, because when I was early in genealogy, I knew the name of one of my great-great-grandmothers, her maiden name. It was in tons of people's records because she, big family. Okay. Then they finally put online the death records for her county, beginning in 1851. And indeed, she died in 1851. She was on page 1 of the death records, and it wasn't the same person. Oops. Okay. Everybody knew who it was. It was just they were all wrong. Okay. Anybody who wants to talk about online family search, ancestry? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now. And discussion. Anybody who wants to just
So
pull in?
George, I have
Yes,
a
Sandy.
question again. This is Sandy.
Yeah.
So I have Ancestry, Family Tree Maker, and a tree on Family Search. So, or a link in Family Search. So I have a question about the Ancestry one. I currently have it private. So what is your take on, should it be private or public?
Okay, there's one big watch out for it in here, but I believe that almost all the things you have in your tree should be public. Okay, and the reason is because if you're like me and you want to understand branches of your tree better than you do now, okay, it will be the people who link into those branches who will contact you and say, where did you get this? Or did you know that? Or whatever that you can. And so I tend to, and the only be cautious of it is if your basic database is driven to include your children, your grandchildren, and all of their, cousins under 30, be sure that when you put that on Ancestry, that you've got the thing linked that says, do not show living people.
Okay, so my only concern was, I think that's great information. Thank you. My only concern is what about where something in my tree might be not correct? Is that going to mess somebody else up, or is everybody
No.
else in the same boat as me? They have to check it themselves.
Well, A, they have to check it themselves, and B, I have been known to find somebody who's got a piece of information that disagrees with me, and I'll send them an email on Ancestry, the Ancestry link, and I'll say, Sandy, where did you get that? Okay, and sometimes they'll come back and they'll say, let me show you where I got it, and I'm the one who's wrong.
Okay, good
Okay.
information. Thank you, George.
And getting into an interchange with people,
Mhm.
one of my ancestors has a massive number of people who follow him. Okay, he was a captain in the Revolutionary War, so you can guess lots of people follow him. Okay, he has a stray child. In some records, the child appears. In other records, the child doesn't appear. Okay, and long story, I don't want to get into it, but some of it is based on the family Bible. There was a family Bible, but people discovered the family Bible had been altered. Okay, and she was removed from the family Bible, we think. Okay, so I think that's a great conversation to have with people. Okay, what do you think about Christiana? Was she actually Charles' daughter? Okay, what evidence do you have? Okay, what else?
I have two questions.
Yeah, thank you.
You mentioned that there were some programs specifically for charts. What are they?
I just simply meant that if you Google it, you will find there are some online programs available that are designed to do genealogy charts. I don't know what they are. I'm not a big chart person.
Okay.
Okay,
And,
but by the way, many of these programs we talked about today are very good at charts. And if you go to their websites, and all of that's on the links I'll be posting after this meeting. Okay, if you go to their websites, you'll be able to check out
later
what they have.
Okay, my next question was, I have my tree on Ancestry. And I want to put it on my computer as a backup.
Yep.
So I'm happy to know that it syncs well with Ancestry. But what if I decide then to let my Ancestry lapse for 6 months or a year?
You can
And
always access your tree.
you can still access it, you're saying?
Yeah. Your tree is free.
Now, if I put a change on my computer program, will it still sync with Ancestry if I've let it lapse?
I truly don't know. Okay. But in principle, it should, because what they say is your tree is free and available to you. What you have to pay for is when one of those hints comes up and you say, oh boy, I'd really like to look at that. Okay. It's going to say, Peggy, you need to renew your subscription.
Oh, but what if I just want to change something without any kind of a hint?
I believe they should allow you to do that without any problem.
Oh, so once I have it on my own computer, then I could let Ancestry lapse for a while.
If you wanted to. They want to grab you into their database. So,
And then maybe a year later, subscribe again.
yeah,
So they keep it forever, you're saying?
that's what they say.
Okay. And also, I was so interested in finding out more about reunion, but nobody seems to know anything.
Problem with all of us PC users. Okay, anybody else who wants to ask a question or make a comment? Bill. You're on.
Or, oh. Is it okay?
Yeah, you're on.
Oh, thank you. Okay. When I'm looking at Ancestry and I start going to the family trees and I start finding inconsistencies, what do you, it looks like some trees are tracing just something in particular. Some trees are just throwing stuff in, and it gets interesting. And I'm trying to decide how much of it is true, or where is it true, or if I only see it once, like you suggested, maybe there's a question there I need to look at.
The way I tend to treat other people's trees, number one, do they have a source for that fact?
Yep.
Okay. If there's a source for that fact, and I can click on it and look at it and say, yeah, I didn't know that. That's great to know. Number two is, how does the overall tree look? Okay, if it's generally a well-researched tree with lots of facts, and this particular one is central to the tree, but the facts, okay. The third one is I will send people notes.
Sure.
And say, where did you get this from? And
Okay.
about half the time, people will come back and say, yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay.
And remember that some of those trees are old and have been abandoned, but they're still there until somebody removes them.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. Good. Yeah. And it's what's interesting to me is that as I'm finding something, I find somebody that had a particular title that I didn't know about. And what's interesting is it's in the newspapers in Los Angeles, but the newspaper articles are not on Ancestry. They're somewhere else.
Right.
Which is interesting information. Thank you.
Yeah. And I find, by the way, if you, I'll promote somebody and say that they were Admiral William Gibson or whatever. If you Google with the title, sometimes you will turn up like a newspaper article that will say, oh, you mean this guy?
Yeah.
Yep. And by the way, when you Google things like that and doing genealogy research, be sure to do images as well. Okay, because sometimes the really interesting information from a newspaper shows up in somebody who's posted an image of that newspaper.
Yes. Thank you.
Any
Hey,
other-
George, I was wondering, I've got relatives that would like the information that I'm entering, but they aren't interested in becoming genealogists. So can you get like a PDF printout of a tree in most of these programs, or is there a better way to share that information with them?
Boy, talk about one where the answer is it depends. Okay. Each of the programs has the ability to print out certain things. Okay. I also use fairly extensively on my PC the snip function. So if I have something, say I want to send somebody a little bit of information about somebody, I'll pull that up on my screen and then I'll snip it or do a screenshot and send it.
Okay.
But it depends on what you're trying to do. You don't have to be a genealogist to make your way through these databases. Quite often you might find something like MyHeritage, where you can set up that free little website. And people can go there and take a look.
Okay, thanks.
Stan, are you talking about you want to let other people actually see your tree?
Yeah, I found a whole branch of my family that I just met, and we've been having Zoom meetings and getting to know each other. And one of the people in the group put together this giant family tree and sent it to all of us, but it's on a PDF and it's about 6 pages and it's really hard to see. And so I was going to continue my research and probably get one of these programs. I mean, I suspect that some of these other people would be interested in what I put together, but I don't think that they wanted to actually get one of these programs, go that far.
I don't
Well,
think
I
they
mean-
need to. If you build the tree in a program, then you create the GEDCOM. You can put the GEDCOM into a much more accessible form, like one of the online programs.
But I'm just wondering if he means that he would like to invite people to see his tree, because I know on Ancestry, I've invited 30 or 35 people to see my tree.
Only if it means that they click on a link and it's there.
Yeah,
These are
you know,
people that are not computer savvy and they're not really interested in getting into the details of the genealogical research.
Well,
Dan, you
what I
have to look at-
usually, can I say what I do?
Sure.
I usually send them I'm on Ancestry, so I send them an invitation to see the tree. And I tell them when they get the invitation to call me. And we both get on the tree and I show them how to navigate it. You know, for the parts of it that they're interested in. And if they have any problems, I explain to them what to do.
But they need a login to Ancestry to get in there?
No,
Ancestry tells them what to do. They have to do something, but then they get in and they can see the tree.
Okay.
okay. While you have been talking, I have created a link to one of my trees on Ancestry. It's a URL. I could send it to you. You could open it up and it would take you to this tree.
Sure. Thanks.
Rick?
All right, any other comments? Nancy?
Hmm?
Nancy, you're muted. You're unmuted now.
If you don't want to buy Ancestry, you can go to the library and access it at the library or at a family, Mormon center.
But to put your family tree on Ancestry, you do not have to pay a penny. Okay, you can just create a sign in, go, put your tree on. Okay. Well, that was, I hope, informative. This will be on, has been recorded. It'll be on if you want to go back and look through the data later. I will also post my slides and post the links to all the things we talked about. Next month, the discussion is going to be on names. And we all understand how complicated names can be. I love to talk about everything from, given that you in fact came from Lithuania, when you spoke your name, you were speaking it in Lithuanian, okay? And in fact, would you guess that the person who was receiving that in the United States might or might not understand how you pronounced things and how that matched with spelling? The other thing about names is a reminder, as my father used to say, if you were illiterate, how the hell did you know how to spell your name anyway? Okay. And then finally, there's my favorite, which is, and then there were women. And women have this notorious capability of using different names depending on how they wake up in the morning. Okay. If you've been married twice, you have 3 names you can pick for your surname, and which one you pick to use may depend on what you were thinking that morning. So it can be an intriguing process, and we'll talk about that next month. Yvonne?
Like me, I had my birth name, my adopted name, my married name, and I said, I want my own. So I just made up a name, my last name, Alexander. I have no Alexander relatives. So there's another one.
As I say, women are notorious for in the name process.
Yeah.
And then we have a new generation coming. I was introduced to the term the other day, dead name. And for those who don't, dead name.
Dead name.
Dead name is if you are trans
Oh,
and you have chosen to change your birth name legally, your old birth name is now a dead name.
oh,
So we have a whole new frame in which to put naming in this
Wow.
world of ours. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.
thank you, George.
Thank you.